Hey guys, Gus Rickard here. Facebook Live from the cemetery opposite work. This is the cemetery in St. Leonard's. It's a really old cemetery. Like, I've been looking around at the graves. Most of them are from the 1890s, and like the newest ones are kind of in the 20s. But this is the closest place to work that I can come and just kind of walk around. And it's nice because there's no one here, and it's quite overgrown, as you can see. Like, there's all these little flowers and stuff, because it's not like there's new graves that people come and care for. Some of them are cared for. There's some big tombs that have like new marble and stuff, still have dates from the early 20th century and late 19th century, but they're kind of new, so I don't know how that works. Lawn mowed on them and whatnot. But I thought this is a good place to do today's live, which is on living without fear, F.E.A.R, which is an acronym for false evidence appearing real. I've been thinking about this lately because I get a lot of people that are in quite a hard position to be in, with multiple pathologies going on at the same time, and you can understand why people are in fear when their body just seems to be breaking down in lots of different ways. But even people with just simple pathologies, herniated discs, or anyone with any kind of anything really, like any health challenge, there's always an aspect of fear, mainly because we have a very disempowering medical environment where we have this model that says if there's something wrong with you, you need to seek out a doctor or a therapist or a drug or a supplement or something that is going to heal you, as opposed to having this understanding the body actually has within it innate healing capacity. And the proof there is that we survived as a species prior to medicine, which is relatively new. And the body has a hierarchy of reflexes that enable us to keep functioning optimally. And given the right environment and the right mindset, we can heal from most things. Yeah, so within this environment of fear, where we can't heal ourselves because we're not capable, because the body is unintelligent and only your doctor or your drug or someone else can heal you, it's understandable why there would be fear. But the fear only adds to the problem, really. Fear, we know, is related to the fight or flight branch of your nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system. There's also a third aspect to fight and flight, which is freeze. So if you're in a state of fight or flight constantly, you're going to burn out. First of all, fear is a very natural survival instinct. We need fear, and it helps us get out of danger. Acute fear, that is. If you're walking along and you see a snake, it's probably good to be fearful. If you're walking down an alley and all of a sudden you're surrounded by five guys, good to be like fearful, because it's going to help you respond effectively. But what we have now is chronic fear, where people are living in a state of fear all the time. And it's not, this fear, while it's not that there's real danger, to your mind it's real, so therefore to your body it's real. And so there are some very debilitating effects. First of which, if you're in a constant state of fight or flight, you're going to burn out. The fight or flight system is not designed to be turned on all the time. It's designed to be, well, not to the level it is anyway. It's designed to be engaged quickly, and then to disengage or to downregulate and allow the parasympathetic system to heal us. This fight or flight system and fear as well also creates tension. We tend to go into a very protective posture, if not really obviously, then at a very subtle level that your body notices after a lot of time. The other alternative is the freeze response to fear, and freeze the problem with freeze is that it stops us from acting. You know, if you're in a state of freeze, nothing changes. You're just staying put and not doing anything about your situation. So none of them are good. Fear is a reptilian response. It's part of your reptilian brain. It's correlated, or it's driven by a little part of the brain called the amygdala that's part of your reptilian brain. And reptiles have three basic needs: safety, sustenance, and sex, and in that order. So if a reptile doesn't feel safe, if it looks around from under its rock and it sees a shadow moving around, if it's not all clear, it won't go out into the unknown. The unknown is fearful for a reptile. So only when everything is safe will they venture out and seek sustenance, because there's no point in eating food if you yourself become food. And only when your body is sustained, only when a reptile's body is sustained and safe, will they go out and want to procreate. So the deepest, oldest part of our brain, which has, due to being so deep and so old, has a much stronger effect on our physiology. We still very much act like reptiles in that sense. And so fear will totally debilitate and prevent you from acting from higher parts of the brain. So on top of the reptilian brain, we have the limbic brain, which is the emotional brain that we share with all mammals. And then we have the uniquely human neocortex, which is our logical, rational brain that helps us with language and mathematics and creativity and things like that. So as long as you're in a state of fear, you're not going to be able to act creatively. And creative thinking is needed to change a situation. It's needed to create anything new in your life, because without creative thinking, we just keep going around in the same old circles. So fear keeps us locked in the old. It keeps things as they are. It doesn't allow anything to change. So as long as you're within the grips of fear, nothing is going to change. This is important to know as well, that, as I've said time and time again, the mind is an embodied process. So your physiology is a reflection of what's going on in your mind. So if your mind is in a state of fear, your physiology will be in a state of fear and holding. If your mind can't think or act creatively, your body can't think and act creatively. Remember that healing is an act of creation. That in order to heal, your body needs to act creatively. It can't do that if it's in the grips of fear. So we need to get out of fear, because there's so much everywhere. Like, it's just such a poignant and ubiquitous thing, fear, and it's a very subtle emotion as well. It's not like anger and grief are quite gross. We can tend to access them. We tend to be aware of them a lot more. We still repress those things, but fear is very subtle. Fear, it's very hard to express fear because it tends to make us freeze, to go inward, and to prevent expression of anything. So it tends to get stuck a lot. Now, one of the reasons I did this from the cemetery was because I was walking around here the other day and I noticed, on all these graves, I don't know if this is a good one or not, but there are all these kind of religious statements, go thou thy way till the end be, for thou shalt rest and stand in thy lot at the end of the days. Maybe that's not a very good example, but there's a lot that usually they relate to either to fear of death, because ultimately all fear is fear of death, or to fear of aloneness. It's about the sorrow of the loved ones being left behind. And I think ultimately we all have a fear of being dead. We all have a fear of ending up in one of these graves, but ultimately we are going to end up here, and that's something we need to accept, I think, something I try and accept, because there are, I guess there's a few ways to work through fear. One of them is realizing that all fear is ultimately fear of the unknown, because it all comes back to fear of survival. And as a human being, I think we're the only animals that actually have an understanding of death and fear death. But ultimately, we're only scared of death because we don't know what's on the other side. You know, it's the unknown. And so the neocortex, that part of our brain that can think creatively, is thinking into the future and going, okay, well, death is something scary because I don't know what's there. And then the reptilian brain projects your fear of survival onto that, and we think that to die, to be in the unknown, is to be dead, and vice versa. So I think the first thing to do is to have some kind of trust in the unknown. You know, just trust that just because you don't know what's going to happen doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Another way to put this is to have faith in a higher power. You know, the higher power, the unknown being the higher power. You know, that which is that which we don't know, and that which we don't even know we don't know, because there's so much out there that we have no idea that even exists. Our scope of knowledge is or scope of understanding or scope of insight is very, very small relative to what is happening within the universe. So the first thing I'd say is to have trust in the unknown. The second is to just be very present. You know, if you're in the midst of fear, be present with the feeling within your body and breathe. Remember to breathe. Breathing is the key to those two branches of your autonomic nervous system, the fight or flight and the rest and digest. We want to get into a state of rest and digest. You know, I'm not suggesting that if you're being, well, yeah, even if you're being attacked by someone or something, I'd say you need to breathe. But especially with psychological fear, when we're in the midst of chronic fear, particularly with relation to health challenges, remember to breathe and remember to just have faith in that which is not known. Third thing is, there's a book and an app by Byron Katie called The Work, where there's a process of 4 questions to break down beliefs or thoughts. The first question is it true? And you just answer that with a yes or a no. The second question is, can you be absolutely sure that this is true? The third question is, what happens in your body when you believe that thought? And the fourth question is, who would you be without that thought? Then there's a process of turning it around and saying, okay, the original thought is, I have a herniated disc in my back and it's not getting better. So the belief is my back is broken forever. So you then flip the belief and say, okay, well, my back does work. You flip it 3 ways. I won't go into it now, it's going to take me too much time. But one is to flip it on the personal. One is to, I can't even remember, but go on the app. It's called The Work. So don't be afraid of fear. Remember the story of Chicken Licken, who had an acorn fall on his head and ran around everywhere thinking the sky was falling in? That kind of comes to mind a lot, particularly with regard to pain and illness and stuff. Just remember, the body is healing. It's always healing itself. It's always growing, and you're always here. As long as you're thinking a fearful thought, you're here, alive and breathing, and your body is going through processes. Part of trusting the unknown or trusting a higher power is trusting that the intelligence of your body is greater than your conscious intelligence. Remember that you can't heal anything in fear. If you're in fear, your body's not in a state of creativity. And the pattern that comes out is when something, I think ultimately fear manifests illness or pain or dysfunction in the body, or at the very least, when there is unresolved fear and something goes wrong, it tends to get really bad because we cling on to it. Because if you are someone who has a lot of fear, a little niggle in their back might become a big catastrophic event in their mind. And the way that pain works, and I think, and this has been researched a lot with pain science, but in my experience, it's the same for all symptoms, which are ultimately experiences. Symptoms are different from signs, and that symptoms are subjective. I think it's the same with all symptoms, that they're relative to your experiences in the past, your beliefs, your thoughts, your biochemistry. So when we're in fear, little niggles or little, a little cough or something becomes a big catastrophic event, and then your brain ranks that perception as being more important than it is, and gives us what we need to protect ourselves from hurting ourselves more, which is more pain or more cough or whatever. So fear manifests itself in the body as dysfunction and symptoms and disease, and then we project our fear back onto the experience of our body, and it prevents healing, because when you're in fear, you can't be in a creative state. Your body can't act creatively when you're in fear, so it stops you healing. So whatever state you're in, whether you're in you've got cancer, you've got a herniated disc, or whatever it is that you've got, you need to address your fear to heal. You're not gonna, fear makes us seek other people, because this belief that comes from the medical establishment that we're incapable of healing anything ourselves. We buy into that thought and we seek out treatments, but we're never actually addressing the root cause, which will at least involve the fear in your head. So go through the fear, be present with it, breathe. Remember chicken licking. Remember the acronym F.E.A.R, fear, false evidence appearing real, and get the app called The Work by Byron Katie. Thanks, Kurt. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm looking forward to any questions. You can just type them in and I'll answer any. Lots of love and peace.